class. So hopefully you didn't have too much trouble with the practice test from this morning. So what I'm going to do is going to go over some of the answers with you guys right now. So the first one that I'm going to go over is number 1. So I kind of just drew a quick sketch of it right here. It might be hard to see because of the glare, but what we have here is a rectangular prism, and they gave us the area of the base. So really what they already did was they already did length times width. So like a potential length and width could have been like 3 times 5. 3 times 5 is going to be 15 square inches. So if you remember, right, volume equals length times width times height, or base times height, BH. So what you do is you take the base, which is 15, and then we're going to be multiplying it by the height, which is 4. Okay, so that's why the answer is C, right? So number 1 is C, which is 15 times 4. All right, so I recreated a visual of number 2. This is a tough problem, okay? A lot of times people get confused about this number 24 and this number 25, all right? So when we want to find the surface area, as I showed you before, I think the easiest way to go about doing this is creating your own kind of like what I like to call a picture formula. So what we have is the surface area equals, now we have to find the area of each face. So there are 2 triangles, and then there's 3 rectangles. Top, right here, right, 2 on the top, and there's 1 on the bottom, which may be difficult for some of you guys to see. So 1, 2, 3. All right. I find it easier to find the area of the triangle first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the area of this triangle. A lot of times people get confused because they can't figure out what is the base and what is the height. So if you remember what I said is the base and the height meet at a right angle. So I always try to look for that right angle symbol, which is right there. So I'm going to say the surface area is, okay, so we have to do base times height divided by 2, or 1/2 BH. So the base and the height have to meet right here. So that from here to here is 24, right? From here to here is going to be 14. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 24 times 14, which is 336. Then I'm going to divide that by 2, and what I'm going to get is 168. So 168 is the area of one triangle. So that's the area of this front triangle here. Then you have to find the area of the back triangle. But the triangles in the triangular prism are all going to be congruent. So that would be the area of this one back here as well, and this one in the front. All right, so now they're both 168. Some people like to do is just do base times the height of the triangle and then just keep it as that because you already have 2 of them. It's up to you if you want to do that shortcut. All right, so now what we need to do is find the area of the different rectangles that make this up. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the area of the bottom rectangle here. So that's this one right there. So length times width, 25 times 10 is 250. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the area of one of the other rectangles. So I'm just going to do this one for right now. Okay, so the area of that is 10 times 14, which is 140. All right, and then lastly, what I'm going to do is I have one more rectangle I need to find the area of. So I'm going to find the area of this top one here. So from here to here is 10, so that means this is 10. So 10 times 25 is going to be another 250. Okay, so then the last step they need to do is they need to add all of these together, right? So for the surface area of all of this is going to be 976 square meters. 976 square meters. All right, so hopefully that clears up some confusion with number 2. All right, so let me pull up here. the textbook page. So if we look here, the next question, let me scroll down. You can see 1 is C, 2 is B. Okay. So if we look here, number 3, it says a rectangular prism has a volume of 400 cubic feet. The length and the width of the base are 5 feet by 10 feet. Which equation can be used to find the height? Okay, so remember the volume equals base times height. So if you look at letter A, the volume is 400. The base is 50. How did I get 50? Well, 5 times 10 is 50. And then the height is h. So that's the reason why the answer is A. Okay, if you look at number 4, it says a speaker is shown below. How many faces does it have? Any rectangular or cube, rectangular prism or cube is going to have 6 faces. Sometimes people have questions about the circles of the speaker. That's just one of the sides of the speaker. That's just part of that face. So there's just 6 faces. All right, number 5. So number 5, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be showing this on the board and going over this with you guys. This is a really tough question. They're basically showing 2 different ways of finding the volume of this, but not the volume, right? They're finding how many half-inch cubes can fit into it. All right. So I showed you guys one way. So basically what they're showing are 2 ways as answers here. So I'm going to go over why the answer there is B. So let me just switch screens. Okay. So what we have here is it's 7.5 inches by 1.5 inches. Okay. And then the height is 1.5 inches. So if you remember, to find out how many half-inch cubes can fit into this, so let's just say a half-inch cube. If you look over here, it's 1/2 by 1/2 by 1/2. Okay, so if I want to figure out how many fit along the length here, I want to figure out, well, how many halves can fit into 7.5? Well, if you think about it, 2 halves can fit into an inch. So the first inch is going to have 2. Second inch, third inch, fourth inch, fifth inch, sixth inch, 7 inch. So I know this isn't really to proportion, but basically how many halves can fit into this? There's going to be 15 halves. You can do 7.5 divided by 7.5 divided by a half, or just figure out that in 7 inches, there's going to be 14 halves, and then there's another half added onto it. Okay, so 15 of these half-inch cubes can fit along the length. Okay, so it can fit along the width. So 2 halves equals, that's not proportional. Okay, so 2 halves is equal to 1 inch plus another half. So there are 3 that fit along here. And then same thing for the height, there are 3. So to figure out how many of these half-inch cubes can fit into this, do 15 times 3 times 3. So 15 times 3 times 3. So now let me go back to the textbook page here. And if you look here, right, that's how they got the first part here, 15 times 3 times 3. All right, so the other part, the other thing they have 135 times 1/8. Okay, so what they did here was they found this part's confusing. So I'm just going to kind of leave it as just know how to solve this first problem. Okay, finding the length times the width times the height. How many halves can fit into length and width times the height? Okay, don't worry quite as much about this one. So don't worry quite as much about this one. So 16 and 7/8 is the actual volume of the prism by doing 7.5 times 1.5 times 1.5. but I wouldn't be asking a question like this on the test. All right, so if we scroll down, number 6, okay, a lot of times people have confusion about this picture. Don't worry about this back part of the stove. Just know it's going to be length times width times height. So 70 times 50 times 60, which is D. All right, so now moving over. Okay, number 7 says find the missing measure of the height of a rectangular prism. So let me show this one on the board as well. So let me just kind of get this ready for you guys. So always know that the formula is volume equals length times width times height. So let me switch screens. All right, so volume equals length times width times height. So in this case, the volume, so whenever we have a formula, just plug in what you know into the formula. All right, so the volume is 83.04 equals the length they tell us is 10.5. The width, so times, or you can even use the multiplication side if you want. The width is 7.6 and the height is unknown. So if I wanted to solve for this, the first thing I'm going to do is I need to solve for the variable. So I'm going to simplify by multiplying these two numbers together because I can do that. So then we have 383.04 equals, okay, and then we have to do 10.5 times 7.6, and we get 79 and 8/10 times height. So as I've said probably 400 or 500 times this year, how do we solve for a variable? Inverse operation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides because division is the inverse of multiplication by 79.8 by 79.8. Okay, so that cancels. So we have the height equals, and then we divide those two numbers together. Okay, and then we get is 4.8. So that is 4 8/10. So let's go back to the screen. All right, so 4.8. Okay, the next question, it says a rectangular box has a length equal to 12 inches, a width 4 inches, and a height of 2 inches. Which of the following expressions can be used to find this surface area? Okay, so what they're doing here is 2 times, okay, they got 48. So you're probably wondering, well, where did they get 48? So if you remember, the formula is 2LW plus 2WH plus 2LH. Okay, so what they did here is 48 is 2 times the length times the width. And then they got 2 times 8 by 2 times the width times the height. And they got 2 times 24 by doing 2 times 2 times 12. So they used that formula that I taught you guys how to use earlier for the surface area of a rectangular prism. All right, so this is tough, right? So it says some shipping boxes are stacked as shown. So technically, guys, this is the lesson that we skipped. So I'm not going to put this on the test, but I thought you guys would still be able to figure this out. So if the face of each box is a square and each box represents 1 cubic unit, what is the surface area? So in the front here, on the front part, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's going to be 4 in the front. In the back, there's going to be 4 as well. On the top, there's 1, 2, 3. On the bottom, there's going to be 3. On the side, 1, 2. And on the other side, 1, 2. So if you add up all those together, that's 18 square units. So again, that's not going to be on the test. So don't worry too much about that. But I thought that you guys could still be able to handle it. All right, so number 10, what is the volume of this rectangular prism? Length times width times height. The answer is C. All right, number 11, which of the following does not represent a polyhedron? So remember, guys, the definition of polyhedron, kind of like a polygon, right? It has to have straight sides. So if you look at D, D does not have straight sides, right? So D is what we call a cylinder, right? It's not a polyhedron, not straight. Okay, number 12, which of the following best describes the shape of a baseball? So a baseball is a sphere, right? It's a ball. Any